Hey everyone, I'm back again with another video, and today I'm going to talk about something a little different. Today I'm going to talk about the reasons why I think you should play Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially if you're on the fence about picking up the game. I know it's easy to talk about the negatives of the game like I have in the past, but I also wanted to talk about the positives that really make the game worth playing. And the things that I'm going to talk about are things that I think are positive, unique, or that they're just things that are enjoyable about the game. I'll also briefly talk about my experiences with the game, along with the fond memories this great game has brought to me over the years. So without any further ado, let's get into it. One of the things I like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the fact that you have the extra deck at your disposal. One of the things specific to Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the extra deck, which I think is one of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s strong points, since it allows you to make plays that you never could make before. As a result, you can extend your combos in a completely different direction. My stock example are synchros, and like I've mentioned before, synchros are my favorite extra deck mechanic of all time, and they revamped the game for the better, and it provided a whole new way to play in general. And it basically allowed you to more easily take advantage of the extra deck as opposed to the clunky fusion mechanic from earlier days. And it's definitely an improvement over the way we had fusion mechanics even back in the mid to late 2000s, back when GX was in full swing. The extra deck mechanic has also evolved not just in the ways of synchros, but it's also evolved in the ways in XYZ's, pendulums, and link monsters, which have spawned whole new strategies, gameplay mechanics, and whole new ways to play, and it spawned whole decks and archetypes as a result. And because of it, it has expanded the game in ways that I've mentioned before, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is far more diverse and has far more to work with than it ever has before, and especially in terms to other card games. So the next thing I really enjoy about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the speed/combo potential in the game. For those of you who have been playing since the beginning of the game, you know that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was very basic and it was very slow compared to now. You normally just summoned a non-effect monster, set a few cards, and you maybe activated a spell. However, we've seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Speed pick up over the years in terms of players being able to quickly search out cards and summon monsters a lot more easily, and I think this has added a considerable amount of strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! You now have to think past than just summoning out one monster or setting a few things. You now have to think out about potential plays that you want to make in that turn, and it also gets you thinking about what kind of end board you want to make, or what kind of ideal board you want to have by the end of the turn. The speed of the game also allows you quicker access to combos that normally would take turns to achieve in the earlier games of the day, and I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Has improved in all, just in general because of this. And because you can access combos a lot more effectively, you can build stronger boards and recover a lot more quickly, which gives you more of a chance to turn the game around. The deck that I think exemplifies this idea the most are Synchrons. I personally feel a deck like Synchrons gave you access to a wide variety of combos/combo potentials because of their search power and because of their archetype capabilities. Synchrons felt like the perfect mix between speed and power in order to pull off potentially crazy combos, but only if you were skilled enough to think out your plan, as well as actually being able to know how to pull off these crazy combos. And comparatively speaking, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is much faster than a lot of other card games, and I would say that it might be the fastest card game out right now. And I think that speed has greatly contributed to the game's growth over the years, primarily because of the reasons I have just stated. This next topic kind of relates to the speed/combo potentials I spoke about before, but this primarily has to do with archetype interchangeability. And what I mean by this is it's incredible just how many archetypes you can fit into a deck. So, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very synchronized in terms of its speed and combo potential, it enables players to make builds with a wide variety of archetypes in the very same deck. The prime example I go to are decks such as Zombie Swarms. Decks like Zombie Swarms combine different archetypes such as Light Swarms, Zombies, Psychics, and even Predaplants into the very same deck. This wide diversity of archetypes has allowed players to build very dense decks with different types of monsters, and it's allowed all sorts of interesting strategies that you didn't even think were possible. This ability to mix decks promotes more creativity, along with deck design, and it may make you curious about what you might get if you decide to mix a couple of kinds of archetypes together, which may wind up defining the meta. And this is personally one of the most fun-filled aspects of Yu-Gi-Oh! For me. Sometimes you just want to try to mix a bunch of archetypes together, and you just want to see what you might get. The next point has to do with trap cards. I've long thought that trap cards have been a very distinctive mechanic of Yu-Gi-Oh! So much so that the phrase "you've triggered my trap card" has garnered mainstream popularity for a while, since it was frequently and iconically used in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. The way traps typically work is that you tend to set them face down, and you spring them on your opponent when the proper situation presents itself. And although different card games like Magic the Gathering do similar things with instant spells where you have to use them to spring on your opponent, or how they sometimes place them face down for a morph effect, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap mechanic is mainly known for being placed face down. And the fact that you have to play trap cards face down adds an interesting dynamic to the game. And the first thing that it adds is a sense of strategy, since traps are intended to be used as a sort of defense, and having cards face down on the field adds a bit of doubt in your opponent's mind as to whether they should attack or not, and it also makes your opponent think more carefully about their next move. The trap mechanic was very popular for a long time, and it did lead to some very interesting deck mechanics, primarily control mechanics such as Exodia Control or Exodia Lockdown, and even burn decks or destruction effect decks that typically happen during the battle phase. And I can't help but say that trap mechanics have been my favorite out of the three main type of mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh! Out of monster spells and traps. So much so that I've made a bunch of different Exodia Control decks in the past, mainly because I enjoy the idea of setting up a bunch of traps and seeing how I can snare my opponent in those traps. And I've also enjoyed the flip side of facing trap-based control decks, since I often enjoy the challenge and the thrill of maneuvering around my opponent's trap strategy. I've always enjoyed this element, along with the mind games and potential bluffs that you can do by setting up traps face down as a means of scaring your opponent. And that's why I think traps are one of the most interesting mechanics in Yu-Gi-Oh! And their unique features make Yu-Gi-Oh! A game that is really fun to play and incredibly interesting in general. And it adds a degree of chaos into the mix, in my opinion. And I can't help but feel that trap cards are iconic to Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of it. And the final reason on this lineup involves the community. So this may not be a unique thing to Yu-Gi-Oh!, but it definitely adds to the experience of getting to know people in the community. And it can be a really refreshing feeling, especially since it can help you make new friends. The game is already fun, and it can be so much more enjoyable with friends, whether you make new ones or whether you play with your current friend group. It's a great way to bond with them, whether you bond over playing the game, talking about the anime, or whether you bond over the Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games that have been released over the years. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Fanbase is so robust that you can have a plethora of options, and I can't tell you how many great and memorable times I've had with the game and playing with friends or at locals. Personally, I fondly remember going over to a friend's house after we had just gone to locals, just so we could practice with our new decks or just hang out in general. And I can say some of my fondest memories were when we'd walk over to the nearby Carl's Jr. right after our locals closed for the day. And we'd sometimes crack open some booster boxes or some booster packs. And this game allowed me to have so many great memories with friends that I can't imagine my life without it. This game didn't just bring my friend group together, but it's brought together a community, which has made Yu-Gi-Oh! All the more stronger and better. So if you're thinking of picking up Yu-Gi-Oh! Or you're on the fence about picking it up, you have a huge community waiting for you, and I'm more than sure that you won't regret being a part of it, since Yu-Gi-Oh! Has so much to offer. So go for it, crack open some packs, and have a great time. I can't recommend it enough. But yeah, those have been my reasons for why I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is worth playing. And I could sit here all day just listing the things that I love about Yu-Gi-Oh! Just like how I just love the switch and play trap mechanic that I spoke about earlier, and it would be so incredibly long, but I really wanted to make this video so I could encourage new or returning players that want to try the game out again. And though Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a lot of faults, I did want to make a positive video about the game, since it's easier to hyper-focus around the negative aspects of the game, and this could ultimately be said for anything if you really think about it. But with that pretty much wraps up the video, and that wraps up my take for this situation. If you would like to support more content like this in the future, you can do so at my Necromancer1040 Patreon link down below. I normally post it in the description, and you can check it there along with the other cool things I normally post down below. And with that, thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for your support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Alright, take care.